Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Kozlowski. I'm a first-year graduate student in FIU's Global Affairs, Globalization, and Security program. My research focuses on anti-human trafficking policy and bridging gaps between psychological frameworks and conflict analysis. This first fireside chat of today will explore United States-Mexico relations regarding Mexico's defense and security readiness. Without further ado, it is my distinct honor to introduce my grandfather, formerly known as Ambassador Ronald D. Johnson, United States Ambassador to Mexico. This fireside chat will be moderated by Dr. Carlos Diaz Rosillo, founding director of the Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom and the former assistant to the Secretary of Defense. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guests. Thank you.
Wow, how do I top that? Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. It's a pleasure to be here with you. The ambassador and I were part of a group that met about once a month a few years ago in Coral Gables to discuss politics. And it's great to be able to discuss our relationship with Mexico, our biggest trading partner. You have plenty of experience in foreign policy and in the hemisphere. You've been a Green Beret, you've been a senior CIA officer, you were America's top diplomat in El Salvador, and now you're America's top diplomat in Mexico, our closest ally. There are a number of security challenges facing the hemisphere. What would you say are those top 2 or 3 security challenges? And is the U.S. organized and ready to meet those challenges today?
First of all, I try to hug everyone at the podium when I know I'm going to be asked questions. So I'm glad she mentioned that she is my granddaughter. So this was a surprise, and it's good to see you, Allie. Top security challenges. I'll just cut right to the chase. The first one is demand for poison. There's a demand for drugs in our nation, and those drugs fuel violence, weapons, they fuel corruption, they fuel illegal mining, illegal logging, wildlife, problems with wildlife, illegal immigration, although we've almost solved that. We've made a great deal of progress. But we were just talking at Southcom, and we talk a lot about how to stop the narcotics from coming into America. We don't talk enough about how to reduce demand. We've got to teach our families and our people and our population, not only is there a danger to you in using these drugs, but you are supporting people that do not wish the United States well. A lot of the, for example, the fentanyl that's still killing about 70,000 Americans a year. Think about that number. On 9/11, 2001, we lost about 3,000. And we went to war for 20 years. This is killing about 70,000 Americans a year. And there's more involved than just the production, the precursors, the transit, crossing the border. There's the demand. We have to reduce the demand. Now, all those other things that I mentioned contribute. And the thing is, there's so much money involved in this that the money goes back and it fuels weapons going south. Those weapons fuel violence and control and cartels. And all the business gives money to the cartels to pay officials that are vulnerable to corruption, to pay for sophisticated equipment, for drones, ways to transit these illegal drugs across the border. And it creates a sickness. When I say corruption, I don't mean in its traditional sense. I mean, it corrupts the things that the institutions of government are supposed to do for the people. There's some cases in Mexico where I see corruption has elevated to such a level that some businesses almost get a monthly bill. Here's what you owe this month, and you either pay that monthly bill, or your employees are killed, or your company is burned, or you can't do business as normal. And not just in Mexico. That's happened all over the region to some extent. So I would say the first one is, is narcotics and all the problems associated with narcotics. And it destabilizes governments. It creates health issues. It's just a horrible, horrible scourge on humankind. And I go back to one of the things that we like to brag on, and rightfully so, illegal immigration at our border has decreased by 95%. And Mexico assisted a great deal with that, but I think President Trump, on the first day he was in office, by saying the border's closed, he's responsible for a great deal of that too. And I always have to clarify on immigration, we're not talking about America not wanting people to come into America. We're saying we want people that are vetted, people we know, people that come in the legal way to come to America. We need that. We're not, actually our birth rate's so low, we need that to happen. So, excuse me, it has more to do with doing it right than not doing it at all. Excuse me, I think I'm allergic to being back in Miami, I don't know. Other than that, I've seen all over the world governments, and it doesn't matter if it's a democracy, dictatorship, whatever it is, that have failed to deliver. There are promises made, and sometimes those promises aren't kept. And the people are encouraged when people come in and make the promises and run their campaign and get elected, and then they're disappointed that it just doesn't deliver for one reason or another. And usually, what I have found is leaders, excuse me, have to be willing to make a sacrifice. They have to be willing to sacrifice in order to really change the country. Other than that, we can have the most secure hemisphere, the most secure region in the world, but if we can't have an economy that grows and creates jobs and opportunities for people to make a living at home, we're going to have unrest and we're going to have problems. So those would be my three. Narcotics, because narcotics fuel the cartels and many of the other problems. A government that delivers what it promises, and through doing all the things that we know we should do, just doing the right thing, I think we can create a hemisphere that is secure and a hemisphere where there is economic growth and people can find a living, and a hemisphere, frankly, that could be independent from the rest of the world. We really don't, we want to trade with the rest of the world, but we should be the envy of the rest of the world.
So let me follow up on each of those issues briefly. The first one, you mentioned narcotics. As you rightly pointed out, even though the precursors, the financing, the chemistry, the materials don't come from Mexico, they go through Mexico and into the United States. At what point, and of course, those precursors and the financing and all those materials mainly come from China. We're highly interdependent with China. China right now is one of our top trading partners. At one point, it was the top trading partner with the US. At what point does that interdependence with the Chinese become a national security liability? There's no question that China has made tremendous inroads in Latin America and throughout the world. Right now, China is the #1 trading partner of almost every Latin American country. Thankfully, not so with Mexico.
True.
But we're still highly interdependent on our trade with China. At one point, does that interdependence become a national security liability, given that all those materials that you mentioned as a national security threat, narcotics, do emanate from China?
About 15 years ago, it already has. I mean, we have a very serious problem with Chinese inroads in Latin America. And always, when I talk about China, I always bring up, so what's in it for China? I mean, what is in Mexico, in El Salvador, in Honduras, in Central, South America? What's there that China couldn't find in Asia, in Africa, or someplace else? Because further, it's harder to get there. So what's really there for them? And the only thing, or the first thing that I always come up with is it's the proximity to the United States.
Yep.
And being that close to the United States and being a potential adversary and certainly a competitor, to put it mildly, you don't want to be harboring a Chinese intelligence collection activity inside your borders. You don't need that kind of attention. And if the Chinese come in and they build a dam, I mean, look at Ecuador. The dam doesn't work. It's never delivered. So I was talking to an Ecuadorian gentleman yesterday, and he said it's a really nice waterfall, but it doesn't really produce the power that it was promised. So the other thing I say is the Chinese are probably, they make a better argument not to deal with China than I could ever make. Just look at their record that they have across Latin America and to some extent even Africa. They're getting better. They're getting better at it. And it's difficult to compete with China because we don't have child labor. We don't have slave labor. And we can't bring in a U.S. company and deal under the table, for example, and tell someone, if you buy these 3 helicopters, we'll give you 10% back under the table. And you can buy the helicopters on credit, we'll still give you the 10% under the table. We can't do that. Our companies can't do that. So it puts us at an unfair advantage. But I think somehow we were looking the other way when China wasn't. And over the past 15 years or so, we have become dependent on them for a lot of things in the pharmaceutical market, for a lot of things in manufacturing and industry. President Trump talks a great deal about bringing those businesses back, and we're doing some of it, but it's just not as simple as flipping a light switch, packing your suitcase, and moving somewhere else the next day. So it's challenging.
And so how do we do it? I've had this conversation with many Latin American presidents, and I tell them something to the effect of, do you not realize what you're doing when you give this concession to the Chinese to build this port or that bridge or that airport? And they all said, yes, I do. If I have to choose between an American company and a Chinese company, quote unquote, I'm always going to go with the American company. But the American company is nowhere to be found. They're not entering into the bidding process. And so if the choice is between the Americans and the Chinese, I'm going to go with the Americans. But if the choice is between having a port or no port, I'm going to go with the port. And so how do we encourage American companies? How do we encourage greater investment in the region so that we can say we have an American presence that is meaningful? President Trump mentioned this in the National Security Strategy published in November of last year. But the question remains, we can't force American companies to participate, to actually enter the bids. How do you as ambassador encourage that relationship so that it can be stronger and we can really put an end to this Chinese advances?
Well, that also has to be done on multiple fronts. One thing is to get out like this and talk to people. And we need to do more of that. We need to reach people through social media and more traditional media, but we need to do that. We need to talk to the countries where we're working or where we want to work about a level playing field, about investors knowing what the rules are when they come in, reduce red tape, make sure they know that they realize that the country wants the business. They want you to be there. They would prefer U.S. products most of the time. But they have to know you're there, and you have to know that if you come there and you invest your money and your time, that you're going to be treated fairly. And then ultimately, or last, I think we have a responsibility to the people to get out and talk to the local people. I like to invite groups that represent companies or potential investors to come to Mexico, for example, and let them see Mexico, let them talk to people, take them to business meetings, because that engagement is more powerful than anything that I could say. So those would be the three things that I would suggest.
The second issue you mentioned as a security threat is migration. And there's no doubt that the number of illegal crossings has been dramatically reduced. What has been the key to the success of this administration's immigration policy when it comes to illegal crossings from Mexico, besides having a great ambassador?
Well, I think key to what happened at the border is President Trump on day one of his administration said the border's closed. And the personnel that work at the border, the Customs and Border Patrol and others that secure the border, took those orders seriously, and they closed the border. There's still a lot of challenges at the border. I was always worried, you know, if 1 million people come in and just 1% are terrorists or associated with the cartels, that's still a lot of people that are coming in that we don't know. We don't have any idea who they are, where they're going, or why they're coming in. So that still happens to a certain extent. But I think what President Trump did when he said the border is closed is he has now freed up law enforcement, Customs and Immigration, Border Patrol, others, to focus on doing their job rather than just signing a piece of paper and giving it to someone who has been coached and trained on what to say and telling them, see you in 10 years for your immigration hearing if you choose to show up. And what that does is it allows them to come into the country, probably under a false claim, but we won't know that until their immigration trial occurs, and the vast majority don't show up for their hearings, so they're never there. They just disappear, and then they become in the nation, in the country, illegally. It's difficult for them to get a job. They can't go back home to visit parents or family and come back because they're in the country illegally. And they've created a problem for themselves. They're probably indebted to a cartel. Cartel's watching them. They probably owe the cartel something. And they tend to get involved in crime here in the U.S. as well.
President Sheinbaum has staked out a pretty firm sovereignty doctrine. No foreign military or law enforcement operations in Mexico, no DEA's arrest in Mexican soil, limited intelligence sharing. You're the man who's supposed to bridge this gap between that sovereignty doctrine that she has staked out and President Trump's demand for security. How do you do it? How do you balance those two?
Some days very carefully, other days not so much. It's a difficult environment to operate in, but we've done so extremely well. We've had a great deal of success. About 360 tons of narcotics this year, over 20,000 drug labs taken down inside Mexico. We've made thousands of arrests. The Mexicans have made them, primarily using intelligence and information that we provided. So President Sheinbaum uses the words collaboration, cooperation, and coordination. And within the context of Mexico's sovereignty, we're able to do all of that, to provide assistance, to help them with their targeting efforts, and then when arrests are made, to help them deal with the information that they learn from making the arrest, and to help them deal with the aftermath. It's worked fairly well, and I hope we can continue to do that, because Mexico's sovereignty is written into their constitution. I get frustrated with it sometimes. I understand it, but it would be like telling a NATO member you can join NATO, but you can't really cooperate with NATO because we're sovereign. So if you need help, you can't get help because we're sovereign. And that's the way I explain it. Like, look, we don't want to run our operations inside Mexico. We want to help you with your operations inside Mexico. Sometimes the problem is capacity. Sometimes there might be unique capabilities that we have that Mexico doesn't have. But it's not kicking down doors and putting people in handcuffs in Mexico. That's their job. We just want to help them do it.
But where would you say that legitimate constitutional principled sovereignty and what some might call strategic obstruction begin?
In politics. I think it's wherever you define it, wherever you think it has to be. When you say sovereignty, we're sovereign too. And when you look at the cartels and the 70,000 U.S. deaths a year, that's an invasion of our sovereignty. So the argument or the discussion that I have with Mexico is we both have a lot of issues. We both have some issues in common that impact both our nations. Let's just work together on those. Let's try to cooperate on things that will have the biggest impact on our population. And if we can do that with coordination, cooperation, collaboration, let's do all those things and let's make this work. And then perhaps we can get to some of the more difficult issues after we've solved the bigger one.
You've been at Post now for a year and a month exactly. And so we step back and look at that year and a month of being in Mexico. What's working well? What's next? How do you envision the next few months, the next few years of your tenure in Mexico?
I actually think the cooperation, coordination, collaboration part is working well. Security is working pretty well. We have the USMCA, the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, is up for formal review. It's already begun, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not that involved in that. I facilitate it, but that is occurring primarily through the U.S. Trade Representative's office in Washington, D.C., and with the White House, frankly. So they'll make those decisions. I'll support those decisions. But I think what we have with the USMCA is we do have a framework that we can utilize to help build our economies together. And Canada's in there too. So the three of us have a framework. And frankly, again, the relationship, we have with Mexico the largest trade relationship in the history of the world. It's almost $1 trillion a year. We're close to $1 trillion. And somebody did the math. I'm not that good at math, but it's like $1.7 million a minute, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, crosses the border legally. We're talking legal trade. It is an incredible amount of money. And, I look at, there's probably 7 states inside the United States whose number one trade partner is Mexico. So not just the U.S., but those states. And you look at one of the other things that I have to consider, because I'm responsible for safety of Americans in Mexico as well. And a lot of people don't know this. I just found this out myself by doing some research. We have about 40 million U.S. visits per year, U.S. citizens coming into Mexico. We have more U.S. citizens that choose to live in Mexico than any other country outside the U.S. So we added that up, and we did some division and some fancy math. And we didn't know this, but on any given day, I have more U.S. citizens inside Mexico than the population in 15 of our states. I mean, there's states like Wyoming, North Dakota. I mean, not densely populated states, but 15 states have fewer U.S. citizens per day than Mexico does. So we want to keep them safe. We've got the World Cup coming up in June. There's 3 cities in Mexico that are hosting games, but for those of you that follow the game of football, not U.S. football, but football, there will be fan centers. There will be anywhere where there's a big screen TV and a cigar bar or a place where you can get a beer. There's going to be people there watching the World Cup for about a month. Yeah. And I always tell Americans it's like 30 Super Bowls back to back, because some people that don't follow soccer don't understand what world football is. But it will be terrific, but it comes with a lot of security concerns too. So I'm looking at not just the 3 cities in Mexico that are hosting those games, but I look at the fact that Mexico provides an avenue for people to come up and cross the border and get inside the United States. And I think about all those 40 million visitors and tourists and people who live in Mexico that are going to go to assemble and watch the game on a big screen TV, and how to make sure that they're kept secure and safe during that event. So
the opening game is June 11th in Mexico City. So I hear. You mentioned President Sheinbaum's desire to cooperate. Everybody wants to have a strong U.S.-Mexico relationship. We in the U.S. certainly want to do that, and Mexicans want to do that. Mm-hmm. If President Sheinbaum were here and we're listening to this, what can she do that she's not doing? What can the Mexican government do that they're not yet doing to strengthen that relationship?
Okay, I will back up just a little bit, and then I'll hopefully answer your question. The first day I met President Sheinbaum, it's a big day for an ambassador. You go and you present your credentials. So your letter from your president to their president. So it's a big day, it's a big event. So the day I presented my credentials, we sat, we spoke, and she said, well, the relationship between Mexico and the United States is like a marriage.
Right.
And it is. We're very intertwined economically, socially, culturally. But she said it's like a marriage. But there can't be a divorce because we can't move. We can't move our countries. We share a 2,000-mile border, so we can't move. And I said, yes, ma'am, it is. And Madam President, as someone that's been married for a long time, let me tell you the secret. It's dialogue. We do not go to sleep angry with each other. We disagree because my wife is frequently wrong, so we disagree on it.
She said no.
But we don't stop talking. There has to be dialogue. You have to work your way through those things. And I think she appreciated that. And so we try to work through those things. I've met with the foreign minister once, and there was an issue that was really sensitive. I can't say what the issue was, but he says, that's a red line. And I said, please don't ever tell me that again. It's our job, your job and my job to get beyond red lines. We can't afford to have red lines. This relationship is too important. We need each other more than we want to recognize, but we can't have red lines. Sometimes it's win-win. Sometimes it's you may win and we may lose. Sometimes we may both lose. We have a fancy word called burden sharing, but we can't always win everything. But we have to build trust, and we have to build a partnership that we can use for the mutual benefit of our people. I think President Sheinbaum is she's a very pragmatic lady. She's a very courteous person. She's charming. I enjoy talking with her. She's smart, a very intelligent lady as well. And I think looking at it pragmatically, she understands that our countries are so close that we will never be able to divide our people. And so is our economy. We depend on each other. And I want to tell you another story. For those that know Rick Perry, former Secretary of Energy, former governor of Texas, I had dinner with Rick the first night I got to Mexico, and he said, you know, when I was a kid, I grew up near the border. And we didn't take it that seriously when we were kids back then. I don't know how old Rick is, but he said, we crossed the border every day. And we played sports with each other. We got in fights with each other. We dated each other. We married each other. We're the same people. We're family. And that gets lost on a lot of people on both sides of the border. I know when I talk to Mexicans in general, I say, well, there are these preconceived notions that you have about what we are and vice versa. For example, many Americans, not in Miami, but many Americans, when they hear the word Mexican, They think that means a guy with a sombrero on a donkey riding through the desert. It's true. And I said, and you think when you hear gringo, norteamericano, you think it's a guy with a red Ferrari convertible with his shirt unbuttoned down to his belt and gold chains, and he's snorting cocaine. And I'm like, we're both wrong. We're both wrong, but we have those preconceived notions. So one of the priorities that I have for the embassy is that we try to get beyond preconceived notions, and we try to demonstrate the value in the way that we're already linked together with our cultures and also our economy, and we try to demonstrate the value of the friendship and try to change those notions. It's a challenge because you're talking about changing culture, and you don't do that overnight. It takes time, but we're focused on it.
To conclude with just one line, as many of us who watch the State of the Union know, there's always one line in that speech where the president says, and the State of the Union is, typically strong, stronger than ever, fill in the blank. The state of U.S.-Mexican relations today is?
To be determined. It's, I have to say when you ask me that, people ask me, well, how do you like it? How do you like being there? My answer recently has been, I love it every day, and I hate it every day. It depends on the hour and the minute you ask me that question. It is a roller coaster. I mean, I'm sure it is for both of us, both sides. But I think, I know the thing that keeps me motivated, that gives me the energy to get out and do the work, is the fact that it is so consequential. I always tell the embassy, there is no other post in the world that impacts as many lives every single day as this one. We have 134.4 million Mexicans in Mexico and 320 some odd million Americans here, and you impact all of those lives, plus we can throw in Canada and all the other countries of the world that have immigrants that come through Mexico. It's a huge responsibility, and we feel good and we like being there and working because we're making a difference. We can be a positive force in a world that where sometimes a positive force is needed. So it's motivational.
And thank you, sir. Thank you for your service, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us. Thank you to your wife and to your granddaughter for being here. We talked a lot about President Trump, President Sheinbaum, and we have our favorite local president, President Nunez, here. So thank you as well, Madam President. Thank you.
I have to mention one more thing too. I'm looking out across the crowd this morning. My granddaughter was hiding from me, but it was great to see her. But also a good friend of mine, probably one of the longest time friends that I've had here, is the former Secretary of Defense in Colombia, Juan Carlos Pinzon. It's good to see you, sir.